The band Winger is so old that the 17-year-old girl that they were pining for back in 1988 is now in her early 50s. Winger is a band that came out in 1988 with a debut album called Winger. And this album had a few radio hits like Madeline, Head for Heartbreak, and 17. Then in 1990 they released Winger 2 in the Heart of the Young. That album also had a few radio hits. It was fairly successful. Then in 1993 they released Pull, which some fans say is the best album, but also an album that didn't do well because it came out right in the middle of the grunge years. So after that, the band broke up for many years. They reunited and released the album 4 in 2006, and since then they have been putting out albums every couple of years, which brings us to their 7th album called 7, which is their first album in 9 years. So let's talk about the band. What's interesting is this is a band that pretty much kept most of their lineup intact over the years. It's not something we see very often. We have Kip Winger on lead vocals and bass, Reb Beach, a co-lead guitar. So there's actually 2 lead guitar players, and the other lead guitar player is John Roth. And they have another rhythm guitar player called Paul Taylor, who also plays keyboards, and he actually just came back to the band. And Rod Morgenstein in drums. So let's talk about the album 7 by Winger. It was produced by Kip Winger, and this is the return of Paul Taylor, who last played on Winger 2 in Heart of the Young. The album was released on May 5th, 2023, released on Frontiers. So the album has 12 songs. It's about 56 minutes in length, so let's talk about them right now. Opening track, Proud Desperado. It has a sound of what you would expect from the band. They haven't changed much over the years. The song was a little weird at times. They incorporate these like sound bites of like crowds cheering or something like that, and they kind of mixed up the sound a bit. It sounded a little bit more mature. There were some elements of progressive rock mixed in. I thought it was a good album opener. Heaven's Falling is the second track, and it was pretty good. It was similar to what you would expect from the band. Similar to their early albums, it's a type of song I was thinking heavy enough to please a metal fan, but melodic enough to be listened to by anybody or a fan of rock. And that's all I have to say about this one. Tears of Blood is the third song, and this was also one of the singles. This one's a little darker, a little slower. Reminds me a lot of the band Dokken. And it has those types of like George Lynch style guitar riffs, those arpeggiated chords with distortion. I like the song. It brings back that late 80s glam metal sound. There was a part in the song where they had a short interlude where you hear a person speaking in the background talking about God and demons. Kind of reminded me of like Operation Mindcrime, which I recently talked about in a different video. Resurrect Me is the fourth song. It's just straightforward melodic heavy metal. I don't have much more to comment about it. It's enjoyable. It has a sing-along quality. It's a short 4-minute song. That's all I have to say about it. Then we get to Voodoo Fire. It's a little darker. It has like this thick bass guitar in the intro, and the bass playing really shines in this track. It's one of those songs that has a melodic hard rock sound, but also has some like darker and progressive rock elements. I thought it was a good track. A few of the other things I mentioned about the song is that the vocals were really good. At one point, like Winger like lets out this really big scream, and he kind of lets you know that he still has like most of the vocal ability he had when he was younger. I think you might hear a little bit of his age in the vocals, but he still sounds very good. So we get to Broken Glass. We're about halfway through the album. It's the first ballad. Similar to the ballads from the late 80s, early 90s, they did update their sound a bit. They used some like atmospheric keyboard sections. I was getting hints of like Radiohead at one point. But overall, I thought it was okay. I don't think it would be a radio hit or anything. It's just a nice change of pace after the first few melodic rock songs. Then we get to It's Okay. And the opening guitar riff used that like talkbox effect. It kind of made me think of Bon Jovi's You Give Love a Bad Name. I think that was the song where they used that effect. But it was a song that stands out like from the others. I mean, one thing about this album is that like the songs don't all sound the same. You get like a little variation from one track to the next. Then we have a song called Stick the Knife In and Twist. And We're getting towards the end of the album, and they give us something, I would call this the heaviest song on the album. Also the shortest. It's a fast-paced song. It's energetic. It has some heavy guitar riffs. I think the way I could compare it is something along the lines of like Skid Row's Slave to the Grind album, something like that. It's still glam metal, but they turned up the heaviness a little bit. Then we have One Light to Burn, pretty cool track. My first impression, it was kind of like the band Extreme. They mixed a little bit of that like funk rock into their sound, and then like mixing with the hard rock. I thought it was pretty good. Moved a little slower, had some pretty cool guitar riffs, and it's a decent track. We have 3 songs left in the album, and the song Do or Die was interesting because in the intro it reminded me of Journey, like their music from the 80s, but then as the song evolved they mixed in some more like heavy guitar riffs, so I thought it was really good. They also incorporated like a short acoustic passage towards the end, and they experimented with some different styles. They used some more of that like progressive rock sound that they have been incorporating into their sound over the years, and most of all it's more like a typical arena rock song, so it was very good. And then the penultimate song, track number 11, is called Time Bomb. It made me think of Skid Row, I think only because they had a song called Time Bomb on the last album. I think that was what it was called. It's a good hard rock song. It has some progressive rock elements. Did some different twists and turns. I like the use of the vocals and the backing vocals. So overall it was a strong track. The final track is called It All Comes Back Around. It's the longest song on the album. It's 7.5 minutes. I went into it expecting it to be some kind of like big progressive rock epic, but it was more of a big arena rock ballad. I guess that's how I would call it. I guess I can compare it to Journey, but the vocals were very good. You know, Kip Winger gives a really good emotional vocal performance, and the guitar solos, like all the guitar solos are very good on this album in general. So this was a good album closer. So in conclusion, I was actually kind of surprised. I liked it a little better than I thought I would. I went into it expecting just another typical glam metal or arena rock type of album, but they actually put together a nice collection of songs, and they all have their own like uniqueness about them. Not everything sounded the same. They were able to sound like they did in the 80s and at the same time sound more mature. It also has to do with the fact that this band has the same lineup. You could tell these guys are good friends. They work together well. There's like a lot of good communication with the band as far as like ideas go. The band still sounds good after all these years. I was actually not sure what to rate it at first. I was thinking like a 7, but the album is called 7, so I think it's actually like a little better than a 7. I'm thinking I'm going up to an 8. So my final score is an 8 out of 10. So that is all. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Check out this video right here, and I will see you in the next one.